Remember, we're dealing with this worldview of Calvinism, which teaches that God ultimately is controlling everything, in which case we are taking a stance against that worldview and saying that's not true, that's not what the Bible teaches. Okay? And this argument comes from Dr. Timothy Stratton, who's become one of my heroes, and it's called the deceptive argument. He's going to use a word called ed. You know, it's weird. It sounds like a guy name, but it's not. That's not what it means. Ed literally stands for exhaustive divine determinism, which teaches that God is controlling everything. Okay? So when I say the word ed, that's what I mean. And I actually have a handout in the back that I'd like each one of you to take home with you. Now watch, premise 1. Now, I don't have the time to unpack all the laws of logic, but there is a proper way to argue. There is a proper way to phrase a syllogism or an argument, and if those premises are true and it follows logical form, then the conclusion follows necessarily. Are you with me? Okay? This meets all of those laws. And one day during our apologetic session, I will unpack the laws of logic. I will begin to unpack some of the fallacies that are also used, formal fallacies and informal fallacies. It'll feel like you're in college and you're going through a psychological class dealing with logic or logician. But here's how it follows. Premise 1. If ed is true, then God determines that all Christians to affirm some false theological beliefs. Okay? Meaning, if I don't believe in Calvinism, which teaches ed, and they do, and God is controlling both camps, well then God is affirming false belief. Are you with me? Okay. If ed is true, then God determines all Christians to affirm some theological beliefs. Premise 2. If God determines all Christians to affirm some false theological beliefs, then God is deceptive. Makes sense, right? Because he's deceptive. He's deceiving somebody, right? And his word, the Bible, cannot be trusted. Right? Because if we believe God wrote the Bible, inspired it, and that it's the Word of God, and yet we find out that he's deceptive, well, we can't trust the Bible. Are you with me? Premise 3. God is not deceptive, and his word can be trusted. So what he did is he went modus ponens, okay, and then he went and he flipped it, okay, modus tollens, which is another law of logic. So he's being consistent here. Premise 3, God is not deceptive, and his word can be trusted. Premise 4, therefore, God does not determine that all Christians to affirm some false theological beliefs. Premise 5, therefore, ed, or exhaustive divine determinism, is false. The Calvinist has to deal with this argument because all the premises is within question and can be argued whether or not they're true or not. But it does follow logical form. It is valid. So which of those premises are false? Well, premise 1. If ed is true, exhaustive divine determinism, which is what Calvinists teach, then God determines all Christians to affirm some theological beliefs. I don't know how they can argue that premise, because they themselves believe God's controlling all things, including what one person is believing that may be false. How do you get around that premise? So, have fun trying to pick apart premise 1. It's going to be pretty difficult. Premise 2. If God determines all Christians to affirm some false theological beliefs, then God is deceptive. I don't know how you're going to argue that, because if God affirms over here a false theological belief, and he affirms an actual belief, let's say the Calvinists are correct, and I'm false, well, he decreed me to disagree with them. Well, in fact, he's deceptive, because he's doing both. And if he's deceptive, with premise 2, then we can't trust the Bible, because the Bible is the Word of God. Premise 3. I don't know which premise they're going to try to pick a bone with you, but I can assure you this is intact with their system. Premise 3. God is not deceptive. We all should know that. And his word can be trusted, as the ages has proven. Premise 4. Can't disagree with premise 3. Premise 4. Therefore, God does not determine that all Christians to affirm some false theological beliefs. It's clear that God isn't doing that. Premise 5, and if he's not doing that, then exhaustive divine determinism, aka Calvinism, is false. This is a very strong argument against the issue of Calvinism. Very strong. Just like the free will argument, right? Remember, if evolution is true, right? There's no immaterial soul. If there's no immaterial soul, then there's no freedom of the will. If there's no freedom of the will, there can't be rationality or knowledge. There is rationality and knowledge. Therefore, there's freedom of the will. Therefore, there is the immaterial soul. Therefore, evolution is false. That follows all of the laws of logic. In similar fashion, this argument as well against the Calvinist, that was against the atheist. This here, in fact, shows and demonstrates all the premises. I don't know which one you're going to try to pick a bone with, but they all stand true because they're all using the Calvinistic apparatus and worldview. They're using their doctrine against them. And it meets logical form. So, good luck, because that's my superpower. Their superpower is God is sovereign. Their superpower is you don't understand Calvinism. Their superpower is, well, what makes you so special? Well, wait a minute. You actually believe that God picked you before the foundations of the world. I think you need to answer that question. What makes you so special? If God, like Oprah Winfrey, is like, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car. And he's like, you get damnation, you get heaven, you get hell. Well, that to me, the Calvinist is claiming to be more special in that instance. So those are their three superpowers. God is sovereign. I'm special. And what was the other one? You don't understand Calvinism. My superpower is the logical argument from Dr. Timothy Stratton. Kablah! All right, so we're basically done. I want you guys, every eye up here. Remember, this is actually out of Aaron when he was standing with Moses. And this, he actually spoke over them. So with every eye up here, you two sucker fishes. The Lord bless you and keep you. Let the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Let the Lord lift up his countenance upon you. And no good thing will he withhold from them that walk uprightly. God bless you guys. Have a good night.